and welcome back. So this is part 2 of the Unit 7 Day 1 notes, and I just wanted to separate it because I feel like some people might have needed help with naming polynomials and the vocabulary, and some of you might have needed some help with the adding. So this is the adding piece. And really, adding polynomials is really just combining like terms. And so making sure that when we combine our like terms, we add only the coefficients, and we make sure to keep our variables and exponents the same. But again, the key thing is we want like terms. So remember, like terms would be like 5x and 7x, or negative 3x squared and 4x squared, or 5 and negative 10. Those are all like terms individually, because they all have the same variable with the same exponent, or they don't have a variable. Unlike terms would be like something like 5x squared and negative x, or 3x and 5. So they don't have the same things. The key being that they have to have the same exponent as well. So let's do an example. And I'm going to do this example in 2 methods. So the first method I'm going to do is I'm going to stack them up. So I'm going to simply stack my 2 polynomials. So I have 3x squared minus 2x plus 5. And then I'm going to just stack the second polynomial underneath it. And when I do this, I'm going to make sure to line up my like terms. So my 6x squared is going to go under the 3x squared. The negative 8x is going to go under the negative 2x. And the negative 9 is going to go under the 5. Once I have stacked them up, then I can add them. And so I'm just going to add each of my pairs of like terms. So 3x squared and 6x squared will make 9x squared. Negative 2x and negative 8x will make negative 10x. And 5 and negative 9 will make negative 4. I then just want to make sure that I'm in standard form, which I go 2, 1, no variable. So that is indeed in standard form. And then I want to name my polynomial. So I see that I have a degree of 2 and 3 terms, which makes this a quadratic trinomial. You always want to write your answer in standard form, just because that's how mathematicians want it. And it makes everything look good. It gives a consistency throughout all of your classes and how to look at things. Kind of like always writing your English papers in MLA format. So, method 2, I'm just going to rewrite my 2 equations, my 2 polynomials here. So method 2 is where you're going to use either 3 colors, or however many terms you have, or different shapes to kind of group your like terms. So I'm going to notice that I have 3x squared and 6x squared. And so I'm going to do those in purple. So I get 3x squared plus 6x squared is my 9x squared. Then I'm going to use a different color. So I'm going to use blue. And I'm going to say, okay, now I have negative 2x and negative 8x. And I'm actually using shapes and colors because you could also just do this with different shapes for each one. And then I'm going to use yellow, and I'm going to say positive 5 and negative 9. So that's negative 4. So you're going to get the same answer. I think the stacking method is a little bit more, we're kind of used to that from when we used to add large numbers, so we kind of, get the same places. So same thing with your like terms. It just depends on which method. I'm going to always use method 1 in class and in the video, but you are welcome to use method 2 if you would prefer. So looking at this one, the first thing I want to do is rewrite my polynomials so that they are stacked up. So I always just keep the first one the same, and then I'm going to put x squared under 3x squared, negative 3x under negative 8x, and the negative 5 under the positive 2. I'm then going to add those together. So I'm going to look and do 3x squared plus x squared. It's like saying 3x squared plus 1x squared. So that's 4x squared. Negative 8x and negative 3x will make negative 11x. And positive 2 and negative 5 will make negative 3. Making sure that you remember your adding rules. If your signs are the same, you add. If the signs are different, you subtract. And also just watching and remembering that subtraction is the same as negative. So thinking about that term as a negative 8x instead of a minus 8x. This is in standard form since I go to 1, 0. And so I'm just going to go ahead and name it. It is a quadratic trinomial because it has a degree of 2 and 3 terms. Doing this next example, I noticed that my polynomials are not in standard form. This is a constant, and then this is an x squared. So I know that's not in standard form. So you can kind of do this in one of two ways. You can go ahead and put them both in standard form, then add, or I'm just really just going to copy these down. So I'm going to have 3 minus 4x squared plus 2x. Again, I just write the first one down, and then I'm going to put the negative x squared with the 4x squared. I said 4x squared and I wrote x squared, 4x squared. So I'm going to put the negative x squared under the negative 4x squared. I'm going to put the negative 5 under the 3, and then the positive 9x under the 2x. So I'm just going to group my like terms together. So then I can just add these. So 3 plus negative 5 gives me negative 2. Negative 4x squared plus negative x squared is like saying negative 4x squared plus negative 1x squared. So that's negative 5x squared. And 2x plus 9x is 11x. Again, my variables stay the same. If you are trying to add some things and you're seeing that they have two different variables and you're not sure which one to choose, that's because you're not adding like terms. So making sure your variables are the same, and then you won't have to worry about that. So now I see that my answer is not in standard form. So to write it in standard form, I write the leading term first. So that negative 5x squared needs to go first because it's the highest exponent. Then I need to have the positive 11x next, and lastly that negative 2. So again, making sure to grab the sign in front of the numbers when you move it around in your polynomial so that it stays the same. So 5x squared was negative, so I need to have a negative out front. And this is also a quadratic trinomial because it has a degree of 2 and 3 terms. I'm just going to do a couple more examples. So we're going to do this one as well. So once again, I'm going to stack them up. 6x squared plus 3x minus 8. And then I'm going to put 2x squared under the 6x squared. The negative x under the 3x. And the positive 5 under the negative 8. Adding them up, I'm going to do 6x squared plus 2x squared, which is going to give me 8x squared. 3x and negative x will give me 2x. And negative 8 and positive 5 will give me negative 3. I see that I'm going 2, 1, 0 for my variables. So that is in standard form. And it's once again a quadratic trinomial. One last example, and then we will call it a day. The thing we want to make sure we do is always write the first one. You could also write the second one. It does not matter, but I always write the first one. Then find your like terms. So I see that I have a 5x. So that needs to go with the 3x. and I have a negative 8, which needs to go with the negative 2. I'm doing a trinomial plus a binomial, so that means that I don't have terms for all of them to match up. I will then add those together, and I get 3x and 5x makes 8x. This is like just adding a 0x squared. So negative 4x squared plus 0x squared is just negative 4x squared. Just kind of bring it down there. And then negative 2 and negative 8 gives me negative 10. I always write my answers in standard form. So I'm going to have negative 4x squared plus 8x minus 10. And once again, I have a quadratic trinomial. Hopefully you understand what that is by the end of this video. All right, so I will see if I can find some more videos for adding polynomials, but if you have any questions, just make sure that you ask me, and have a great day.